Hello, everyone. Welcome to the first of the Soulful Leadership interview series. I'm here today with my dear friend, Natalie Ledwell. Natalie is the co-founder of MindMovies, as well as a motivational speaker and best-selling author and law of attraction guru, and the host of the Inspiration Show. That's funny that I have this, that you haven't done the Inspiration Show in quite some time, have you?
No, that's right.
I remember being on your Inspiration Show 8 years ago, and now your new show is not over, just different, and I love that topic and concept. Uh, Last February, you came down to Orlando, and you were part of the Soulful Leadership Retreat, and you had this talk around playing a bigger game, which is the chapter that you have in the Soulful Leadership book that's coming out now. And I wanted to talk to you a little bit about that, because the idea of playing a bigger game when you're at the scale where you are, where you're running a multi-million-dollar company, and more than that, you're impacting millions of lives and you're helping people to live better lives. How do you play a bigger game than that? Tell me a little bit about that for you, what you saw a year ago looking into 2020.
Well, who knew the wheels were going to fall off in 2020? Back then, we were at the conference, and we had high expectations, and then everything stopped. I mean, the world stopped. We all had to go into lockdown. And I remember in the very beginning of when COVID was happening, I'm like, okay, what's the worst thing that could happen? We have to stay in our homes. Big deal. That's not the end of the world. And then it actually happened, and I'm like, ooh, okay. And it was really interesting. In the beginning, I really felt like, well, because of who I am and what I do, I'm like, I sprung into, I need to help. So I started going live on Facebook every day, just to help keep people calm, and to go, look, guys, you have been part of my community for some time now. Everything I've taught you, now is the time that we need to really apply what we've been learning. And sort of reminding them of all of that. So I think those in the beginning, that was more as much for me as it was for them, to help, sort of get our thoughts, get our energy kind of settled into that. And we were very fortunate in the fact that, and if when you read the book, you'll hear the story about MindMovies and how we struggled and everything went wrong, and we finally got MindMovies up and running in September 2008 when the economic crisis hit. And so, this time of COVID, it's very similar. Economically, everything started to go crazy, except we had the pandemic on top of it. And so, because we're an online business, and we back then we just had MindMovies. Now we have a whole bunch of different programs and meditations to be able to support people, but we were in a position to be able to do that. And so it was a busy time for us. Our team, we actually gave our team quite a lot of time off during the year, because it was a very intense time. People are looking for help, and that's great, but then also there was also a lot of tension. And so sometimes it would be taken out on our support team, and again, we'd be doing regular things with the team, going, look, it's okay, this is just where people are, you've got to understand this, and and sort of help them through. So it was a very tumultuous year in the fact that the amount of people that we were helping, it really did step us up to the next level in our business, which was huge. But it was lucky because we were in a position to be able to do that. A lot of our friends, our mutual friends, had businesses where they have written books and speak on stage, and didn't really have an online presence. And having to figure out how to get their business, into an online format. So I was very, very grateful and very fortunate that we were already set up to be able to help as many people as we could.
And you've said it several times. I don't know how many people have picked up on it, but you come from a place of service, of how can I help? And that was the first thing that showed up when all this happened, is how can I show up to help? You had these intentions of really bringing a lot of this personal development work into the schools, and that's still a big piece of what we're going to move into. But the idea of giving these personal development tools that you have been providing for many, many years, and helping people to create the life that they want, now in this chaos and everything else, of being able to actually implement those, I think that's really stands out as who you're being, is just to show up of, how do we help our community. And I saw the same thing with Glenn, during the last launch, when we saw how the elections were affecting everything. And he's like, he said, I'm going to give everything to my partners. It was really amazing to see an affiliate marketer show up the way that he did it. Again, it just shows how your business is built in a way of service to everyone that you work with.
Yeah, he, I think we both have these big hearts, and Glenn, he's really the CEO of the company. He is the marketing genius, so he's into all the the different marketing strategies and so forth. So from the outside, it may look like he's really the businessman, and yes, he is. But then he also has this massive compassionate heart as well, and he understands that it's not just our the customers that we're serving that we want to serve, but it's also our affiliate partners. It's our business partners. It's the people who help to support our business throughout many years. And
all your teams, you have teams all over the world that are depending on you, and
exactly. Yeah. So he whenever he makes decisions like that, it is always from a place where it's like, well, how can I give to my partners? Because we feel, that we have had such a massive success with MindMovies. A big part of that is the relationships that we have with our business partners. And so he wants to make sure that he nurtures and make sure he looks after our partners as well. So yeah, we're looking after everyone.
Absolutely.
But we're coming from a place of fulfillment. Like, we're coming from a place of, we have this, what else can we do? And so,
it's funny that you say that. That's a perfect segue into like the bigger game piece, because even in the chapter in the book, when you're talking about when you realize that you were really onto something with MindMovies and that this was really helping people, it wasn't about how can we make millions of dollars. It was like, how can we help millions of people? Yeah. And we were called to do this. It wasn't coming from a place of selfishness. It was really, again, of service. And that's what I think drew you forward. And this idea of playing a bigger game, of bringing these same personal development skills to young people and to schools. And now with COVID, I have 10-year-old twins that started the first half of the year at home and integrating back into school, now coming back. Now there's even more kids there, and there's more fear, and there's a lot going on. The idea of being able to help children, to me, is super, super exciting. And with all that's happening, there's a lot of challenges already getting into schools. But that was one of the big goals, because you've been in countries outside of the United States, but it was really trying to get into a United States school, and you're there now.
Yeah, well, I really had given up hope for last year. I'm like, oh man, not another year. I'm like, no one's at school. And I know that here in the US, because it's very different to many other countries, schools get paid on attendance. And of course, there was no attendance. And so everything was up in the air. No one knew what was going on. There was so much uncertainty. We really had stepped into the unknown. And it was interesting, because being in the unknown like that, and the whole world was in the unknown. We were all in there collectively together. Yes. And some of us are going, oh, here we are. Oh God, I wonder what's going to happen next. And some of us are going kicking and screaming. But one of the blessings that came out of that is that, something like the education system here in the US that has been doing things the same way for 100 years, all of a sudden went, oh, because they had to. They're like, well, maybe there's a different way that we could look at this. Or maybe, and they had to come up with different ways of teaching. They had to get creative, had to, get ingenuity on how to do things, which has opened up now for the possibility of doing things differently moving forward. So that's been a massive blessing. And, we did have a school at the beginning of the year who were in Florida, who said, yes, we'd love to go ahead. They said they do a pilot program for me, which was wonderful. It's my first US school. And then there was crickets for 6 months. And I'm like, oh, okay, we must have missed the window, blah, blah, blah. And then 2 weeks before they went back to school, she goes, no, yeah, we're still going ahead. I'm like, eek. So nothing like having a real hard and fast deadline to make sure that everything is good to go. So we have been getting some incredible results from that school. And this is a charter school that's very diverse. So it's probably one of the best schools we could have started with. The teachers are loving it. The kids are loving it. It's just been a raging success. So, you know, we're so happy about that. But it's the beginning. It's the beginning. It's huge.
And I alluded to the fact that, you know, it's bringing the personal development work that you've been doing, but you have a partner in this. It's very scientific. Obviously, it's fitting a lot of the guidelines to get into the school systems. Tell us really, what is why you created this in the first place? What were you drawn to create this for?
You know, I honestly, I had a download about creating like the children's version of MindMovies. And then once I did that, I didn't know what to do with it. And so, you know, I'm like, okay, well, you've given me the idea. Now give me the, you know, the vehicle in which to get it out there. And to cut a really long story short, I had a friend that was in Medellin in Colombia who connected me with the dean of the biggest university there. And we committed to donating 10,000 MindMovies accounts to work with underprivileged kids. And he said, could you also create a curriculum to go with the MindMovies? And I'm like, yes. And I'm like, what do you need? He goes like 12 lessons, you know, combat bullying and early school dropout. And, you know, if you can get it to us in the next 2.5 weeks, then it'd be great. We can translate it and have it ready. So I drop the phone and then I go into my, holy crap, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not qualified. You know, I can't do this. And have my little, you know, my small self was coming up and just going, who do you think you are? Like, you left school and you're 15, you don't even have kids. Like, what the? So, you know, I do my little process and went into my visualization, and I saw myself at the end in the school and you know, come out of that meditation and I'm like, okay, what's my first step? So I reached out to a friend who was a teacher. She gave me the outline of what a lesson looks like. Then I reached out to my copywriter to help me, like, you know, flesh out all the writing. And he's like, yeah, you know, my wife specializes in early age curriculum. I'm like, really? Wow. Okay. Manifested that quickly. So that's how I got started in the beginning. And, you know, when we had a couple of schools in Australia that were using the program, and they're like, well, what's next? What's after the 12 lessons? I'm like, I don't know. You know, and the thing is, I kept trying to walk away from this because my small self and my old programs kept telling me that I wasn't worthy. I wasn't qualified. I wasn't, you know, and so I remember at the beginning of a couple of years ago, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, I'm like, okay, I need to focus on one thing because, you know, I had a couple of projects on the boil. And I'm like, well, it's not going to be kids, right? Because I'm not qualified for that. You know, maybe it'll be a TV show. That sounds sexy. I want to do that. And then, you know, I'm like, okay, let's still focus on TV. But then a girlfriend of mine who has 2 master's degrees in child psychology, she's worked with kids in refugee camps around the world. She works with kids in trauma. She's one of my soul sisters from Australia. She emails me and goes, we've got to do this curriculum together. I'm like, oh, it's going to be the kids program. But I'm telling you, a couple of times I kept trying to walk away from it because I had to get over myself. You know, I had to get over me. And then there was a morning and I'm sitting out on my balcony here and I'm on Facebook. This is before COVID and before all the, you know, political divide that's been going on, which made Facebook an unfriendly place. But, you know, my Facebook feed's normally happy chappy, you know, great positive memes. And I'm sitting out there, I'm going through, and then I saw this link and I clicked on it. And it was a news story about a 10-year-old girl who had killed herself because she was getting cyberbullied. She was getting bullied online. And that broke me. I'm like, Nat, you need to get over yourself. You need to figure out how to sort this out because this is not acceptable. You know, and it absolutely broke my heart. I'm like, okay, time to get real serious here. And so 2019 and 2020, I'd say would be the 2 years, only because we were thrust into 2020 the way that we were the years that I had to work on myself. Because I had to become the person, the version of me who would step into this responsibility and to see it through. And to make sure that, you know, I owned my genius in the project, that I owned, you know, what it is that I bring to the table, and that I focus on this and make it my life's mission. So. was a big journey.
It's such a beautiful, beautiful story. And again, when you talk about dealing with this and your own little version of yourself, people who are familiar watching your videos and seeing the work that you do around the law of attraction and being able to manifest so much, you think, well, what limiting beliefs could you possibly have? You know, and what work could you have to do? That now that you've been doing it for 2 years, you're finding there's still work to do, right?
There's always work to do. There's always work to do. And, yeah, I mean, this is where I am now, but, I grew up in a country town. I'm one of 8 children. I'll come from very humble beginnings. And, I didn't have a terrible childhood by any means, but of course, there's a lot of events that happen around money and around love. And, it's very difficult to really love on a child when there's 8 of them, or it's really difficult not to be fighting about money when there's 8 kids. Like there are certain circumstances that I experienced as a child that truly shaped me. And of course, who I am at that age, my biological mother left when I was 3. So there are these things that have been unresolved and I think especially this year, I've realized that for me to step into this version of myself, I had to get really honest with myself. And I had to look at the places that for a long time I've kind of went, no, it can't be that. It can't be that my mother left me when I was 3. I don't even remember it. Yeah, well, there are the things that I had the courage this year to have a look at. And I, worked with a coach. I have an amazing friend of mine who's my coach. And every week, because I haven't been traveling and I've been here, that I've been able to stick in there and clear up a lot of, events that I didn't realize my little internal child, my 3-year-old, was still holding on to, behavior patterns of, when the going gets tough, to start blaming stuff outside or to go into a little pity party. And I didn't realize I was really doing that until, it was sort of, as light was shone on that, you go, oh, okay. Because it's easy for me to make excuses about, well, I'm not qualified, so it's easy for me to walk away. But when I embody what I teach and go, well, look, I would not have been given this. God would not have given me this unless I was the one that was supposed to do it. And so, when I go, okay, well, I'm here, I need to do it. What do I need to do to clear to be able to step into it? So, yeah, it's been a year.
And it has. It's been a year for everyone. And I think, like you said, there's a lot of people that have wallowed in it. And there's a lot of people that saw the opportunity to go in and really for me to see you doing that deeper work and just being able to fully love yourself and show up the way that you are even more powerfully than before. It's really beautiful. I think it's a great role model for other people to see that the way to play a bigger game is doing the inner work. It is being able to look inside and see what pieces of you.
Yeah, and a lot of it is recognizing the behavior patterns and the thought patterns that aren't serving me anymore, or that people that aren't serving you anymore, and getting honest about it. Because there are some things, and my coach is a girlfriend of mine, so, and there are things that I didn't want to admit to her that I didn't want to admit to myself, and I'm like, oh man, yeah, okay, I do that, or I've thought that. I'm like, oh, okay. And there were days that there were subjects that we went to look at, and especially around, releasing some of my patterns around the kids program, that I'm like, I don't want to do this today. And she's like, well, that means that we have to do it. And I'm like, oh. And it takes strength. It takes courage to do that. It's amazing on the other side of it. But I think that, if you are doing any kind of personal work, or you're working with a coach, or you're going through a program and something triggers you, or something comes up and you're like, oh, no, let's not look at that now. That's when you kind of have to take a breath and go, okay, and just square up and go, all right, let's do it. Let's go in there.
Yeah, lean into the pain. That's great. And so you talk about coming out on the other side of it. Here it is, 2020 is behind us, but things don't just change overnight. It's the new year now, everything's different. for me, it was one of the best years of my life. I feel like the people in my life really got to make a greater impact than ever before, and there was a greater need for it. And it opened up these opportunities for 2021. What do you see as the opportunity, or what is your vision going into this new year?
I think with this new year, if I have a word that describes how I'm looking at this year, it's optimistic.
Mm.
The technology of the vaccine, it actually has been around for quite some time. It's just that the pharmaceutical companies didn't have the time or the resources or the money to put into it because it was going to take so long. But, COVID pops up and the government's like, look here, let us help you. And so they were able to fast track that. Now, this vaccine and the technology that they're using for this is going to be exceptionally helpful when it comes to future viruses, in even helping to eradicate the flu, which takes out thousands of people a year. Thousands of people die from the flu every year. Mm-hmm. So that is optimistic to me. I think that a lot of people, and in my experience and the people that we've been working with, a lot of people have really prioritized what's most important to them. We've all had a good hard look at ourselves because we've had to, because what else could we do? But they've really started to prioritize what is most important, which is great. And so we're seeing a shift in, family values and family relationships, which is, really, really heartening. And like I said, even old systems are starting to crumble, and old ways of doing things are starting to be challenged because, we were forced into a reset because of 2020.
Yeah.
And so, I see, yes, there is definitely some residuals and some, mental health issues. There are still some, different things that are still coming from 2020. But I think that, now I feel more equipped with the programs that we have, with who I've become. Like, I don't feel like I'm the same person that I was at the beginning of 2020. I really feel like I've done a complete 180 in so many different areas of my life, and every area of my life is booming right now. So, I feel like I'm in the position now to be able to help as much as possible. Like, my goal for 2021 is in the new school year to be working with 50 schools here in the US. We've also got a team in Australia that have got their own goals as well, but 50 schools here in the US. And, I know that we're in a position to be able to do that. I know that we can be in a position to support teachers. The program has already got the runs on the board. We even have, a postgrad who's coming in and doing a full research paper. So we will have all the, the evidence, scientific evidence and published papers to be able to support what it is that we're doing. So, even though at the beginning I'm like, damn it, not another year that I have to wait, it was perfect.
Yeah.
Because it always is, because everything happens in divine timing exactly when it's supposed to. So.
And again, even with all the challenges and chaoses that schools are facing, you were still able to get into school and be able to run this program here in the United States. Now, to me, one of the great things about this is it's not a nonprofit. You're looking at building this as a for-profit business of bringing personal development. And there's all kinds of other, training companies that do that within schools, but you're bringing something that's so important. It seems like leverage is going to be the next thing. Like, you're going to have a whole team of people. If people want to help you, because that's what I'm thinking about. Like, if I put out the call, what is it that people can do to help you to get into school? What's the highest leverage point? Because you can't be taking all the calls from teachers that want you to come and teach to them. But really, what would be the most effective way for people to provide support to your team?
Well, what we're really looking for are, access to the decision makers who, say for a school or say for a district, can go, look, yes, we can give the green light to this. We're in a position where we can, work with any school or district and go, okay, well, you've got a certain amount of schools in the district. Not every school can afford this. So why don't we do, a thing where it's like a buy one, give one, or that we can really work with the district itself and help the more underprivileged schools as well. We, as you heard from the beginning of our little interview, the reason we're doing this is not, yes, of course we're going to make money because that's, we're a business, but our focus is on really affecting a lifetime change and giving children the skills and the tools that they need to be able to cope. when they are overwhelmed, when they're feeling, like they don't know what to do. We cover all of that. This is not law of attraction that we're teaching in the schools. This is psychology. This is science. And these are, psychological tools that they can use. That's really going to help them, especially in, coming out of a year like 2020. 2021 isn't going to instantly be fixed. And things won't go back to the way that they were. And thank goodness, because, things did need to change.
Yeah.
But to help them cope with the change in a way that's empowering for them as well.
And I just think about all of the healing and the people in our world that have been doing this inner work to heal all these childhood wounds. And when we can do that as children, all the opportunities that they have for decades of making an impact.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the things that we focus on. We help them to understand, why they have certain beliefs, or why they would have thought something, or why something would have influenced the way that they think. So that they have a choice to go, well, is that still going to serve me moving forward? To make that, be able to have that awareness and make that choice when you're still a child is like revelation, we could heal a generation.
I get goosebumps just thinking about that, the power of the youth. It excites me. It's one thing that's been thrilling since we were talking about this 2 years ago. So I'm super excited. And it's interesting because, again, this is like the next evolution for you, is starting with MindMovies, which is a very practical tool, very, seems relatively simple and has this very powerful effect. And so you're actually including 6 of these as part of our book launch. And so anybody that goes to the soulfulleadershipbook.com can download them. Tell us a little bit about what these 6 different MindMovies are focused on.
Yeah, so MindMovie, for those people who aren't familiar, it's basically like a vision board. We know that when we want to achieve or create anything in our lives, if we don't see it in our mind first, if we don't see ourselves already there and feel what it's like to already be there, feel those emotions, then it's very difficult for us to create it. And so, back in the last century, people would make a vision board. So they cut out photos of magazines of the house or the car or the vacation. And so when they looked at this board, they could put themselves in that car. They could put themselves on that vacation. So it made it easier for them to create that visualization in their mind. Well, a MindMovie just takes it a little step further. So it's actually a little movie that you create that is a picture of the life that you want. So it's affirmations that are describing what you want as if it's happening now. And then the photos that also help, an image that your brain can build on. But then the secret sauce is the music. So when you use the right song that absolutely opens your heart and puts the emotional match to what you need, which means you now become the vibrational match to what it is that you need. And so what we've done is created 6 pre-made MindMovies to give you an idea of, number 1, what a MindMovie is, but number 2, to help you to get clear about what it is that you want. Like when you look at the wealth MindMovie, it's a very generic MindMovie, but it helps you to start to realize, well, what does wealth mean to me? But you're visualizing your kids going to college. You're visualizing, the vacations you're going on, or, how you're looking after your family. They're the kind of things that instill that emotion for you. So, the subjects that we have in the MindMovies are things like, courage and confidence, which is, like I was just talking about, what we need to know how to do the work on ourselves, vibrant health, self-love, attracting a great partner, finding inner peace. Download them, save them to your computer, or you can actually download them to your iPhone or your tablet, or, your Android phone or whatever, and then you can watch them on the go. So they're great to keep you aligned, they're great to keep you focused, and they're great to really help you see what you want for your particular future.
And they're great primers. Again, you said they're rather generic, so they can help anybody wherever you are. And then once you start using them, then you want to customize your own and create yours specifically for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's awesome. Well, Natalie, I am so excited for 2021. I'm really thrilled to watch what you're going to be co-creating and supporting you. So is there anything else that you would like to share, or any kind of advice that you'd like to give everybody who's watching us?
Well, I think that 2021, I was in an interview the other day and the lady was telling me this is a 5 year. A 5 year means it's a quickening year, which means that once we get clear, and I encourage you to, if you haven't done so already, don't do your New Year's resolutions. Sit down and go, okay, what is it that I want my life to look like? And get really clear about that. And then all you need to do is to do your little mental vacations, do your little daydreams with intention, and just go there in your mind throughout the day. When you're vacuuming the house, when you're driving the car, go there in your mind, see yourself already there. And then what happens is you start to build this belief and expectation that it will happen for you. And you will be amazed at how things start to fall into place. Now, we all have the same skill. We all have the same ability to be able to manifest what it is that we want. The thing is, it's like getting clear is number one, and then just putting in the effort, putting in the action to be able to make that happen. And I know that you can create anything that you want.
Beautiful. What a wonderful way to start off 2021. Thank you, Natalie. Thank you for being in my life. Thank you for participating in the Soulful Leadership book. Again, we'll have the links right down below so they can access all of those wonderful gifts.
Beautiful. Thanks, Mark. It's always great chatting with you, my friend.
Always wonderful. I look forward to seeing you again in a couple of weeks in February for the next Soulful Leadership Retreat. All right, dear. Bye now.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.